Hello traders, good morning. Welcome to this live webinar here on automated trading systems. This is the second one in September, and I'm looking forward to discuss some of the topics that I have in mind. But feel free to reach out to us in the chat that is available here in the software, or of course use the form. There's a form we have that you can fill in beforehand, and we'll see the questions as well. So use that form to use the to ask us any questions anytime. Basically, not only in this live webinar, also if you cannot join the live webinar, you can then reach out to us and get those questions to us through this form. All right. So some of the things I had in mind. One of the questions, by the way, I see I'm checking the form right now, by the way, and there seems to be a question from Raj, but the question is empty. So I can see that Raj was trying to write something, but fortunately it's empty for us, so I don't know what the question was. So let's take a look at some of the, hang on, let's switch the viewing point here and take a look at how some of these EAs are doing. All right, let's first of all share that so you can see what I'm seeing. Let's start with Zeus EA. So we have had the launch, and you can start with the profit share model. I mentioned that already on Friday. Now it is live and active. So that means that just like with Ultima EA, there is basically no upfront fee, although of course there's the rental version is available as well. Ultima EA also has a rental version, Zeus EA has a rental version, but both also have the profit share model. What does that mean? That traders only share, have no upfront fees or costs to join and to start trading with their capital, and only if there's a profit, a new profit, using the high watermark method. So that means that if there's a month with a new profit, so if you have 1,000 euros and next month the account is 1,200 euros, then a part of that profit, the 200 euros profit, part of that goes to us. Okay, so we only earn when you earn. How much depends on the capital that is invested. So let's take a look. Here you can see the brackets. These are the standard brackets. So less than 1,000 euros, you would share 30% of that. But if you add more capital, that percentage will go down steadily. The more capital that is invested, the lower the share, the percentages that you're sharing with us, and the more, of course, you keep yourself. So if we get 30%, obviously you keep 70%, and then you can decide. You can, of course, grab the profit or keep the capital on the account and keep trading with a higher capital, and yeah, just keep trading with more money on your account. So that choice, of course, always yours, but you keep obviously 70%, the rest of that profit. Now, if there's no profit in a month, obviously nothing is paid in that case, okay, in profit share fees. So if your account went up to from 10,000 to 12,000, but then it went down to 11.5, and at the next month, then nothing is, of course, paid for that month. Now, we do have a special for September for Zeus EA, and you can find more info by going to the blog. So let's do that right now. And here you can see that table. Now, keep in mind that we're going to have a Zeus EA webinar later today at 3 p.m. GMT time. So I'm not going to discuss much more in this webinar. I don't want to duplicate both webinars. It doesn't really make sense. So for full details about everything, join us in that webinar today, actually, at 3 p.m. GMT time. I'll discuss more. But a quick view these weekly webinars are actually meant more to just discuss things, show performance, not as a promotional stuff. So I don't want to dive into this that much. We'll do that later today. But I did want to give you an idea that this is available so that you are aware of that. All right. Someone does not hear me. Do others also have that problem? Testing 1, 2, 3. Do you hear me? Does anyone hear me? Okay, great. Perfect. So, thank you all for your quick response there. So yeah, Zeus EA continues with its winning streak this month, up 1.5%. Last month's were above average with almost 9% here, 8.2%. Average is about 6.5 to 7%. So the average is, for instance, maybe less interesting than Ultima EA, which has a higher monthly average profitability expectation. But that said, it's still a pretty good gain, 6.5 to 7%. It's also pretty steady equity curve, so not too many worries about that. Of course, the drawdown at times could be bigger, by the way, and you got to be aware that 12% is not necessarily the max drawdown that is possible. But I think that larger, heavier drawdowns do occur not that often, but they can. It's just not that frequently. Typically, the drawdowns are light and quick because if you look at the monthly performance, then usually a month ends up in profitable territory. Actually, when you look at 4.5 years of backtesting, I don't think there was one single month of negative performance. So that means that all the drawdown is within the month, not at the end of the month, which I think is an important distinction as well. So, of course, could there be a month that is negative? I'm sure it's possible. I mean, we tested 4.5 years, which is really a lot for a 5-minute time frame, but it doesn't mean it's not impossible, of course. But the track record is quite impressive. 4.5 years with every month, as far as I remember, every month being positive. All right, I hope that's correct, but I am 99% certain that that was the case. So let me address some of the questions. I have one question here in the form from Xander in the Google form here, and then I'll address the questions in our chat box, and then I want to dive into also the Ultima EA a bit, and some of the challenges and problems that some of the traders are facing as well. So that's coming up. All right. So first of all, the question from Sander is thanking us for offering the Zeus EA as a profit share option. And he's also adding a question about the PAM and the drawdown percentage. Then he quotes part of our website. And then the question is, when the EA is trading 1 microlot per 2,500, and the historical drawdown could be up to 75% of that 2.5K, and I start with 1,500, shouldn't that possible drawdown remain the same? Yes. The difference is, I'll explain. The difference is that I'll double check this to be sure, but as far as I understood, the pool of capital will be used to determine how many microlots are being traded. So you cannot do that as an individual investor because, well, I guess that some brokers do have nanolots, which is, if I hope it's the right terminology, that basically splits a microlot into pieces. But not as far as I know, not all or many brokers have that necessarily. The microlot is typically the smallest unit, lot size. So that is why if you're trading the EA individually, 2,500 is the required minimum. But with PAM, we are trading with a greater pool of capital because there are multiple people join or have joined already, and I assume that more will join. So that's why we lowered the minimum capital so that more people can join. And it's because it's just easier to allocate the correct lot size for the total capital, even if not everyone is trading necessarily with 2,500 minimum, but some are trading with 1,500, then the total lot size will be adjusted and lowered a little bit to take that, uh, to take into account that some have 1,500 or 2,000, and not the preferred minimum of 2,500. We prefer 2.5 indeed, but in cases if traders have struggled or struggling to reach that minimum requirement, then with the PAM option, we want to give the possibility for traders to start at a little bit lower entry point without the consequence of a potential drawdown, harming their account or basically that the drawdown could wipe out the account. And that is something, that's why we offer this. That's the idea behind it. So I'll double check that, but that's how I understood it, in fact. So hopefully that explains Xander's question properly. Let's take a look at some of the questions here in the live webinar. Marco is saying that he's interested. Can't attend the seminar webinar later today. It will be recorded, by the way. Will be uploaded to YouTube, and there will also be an article on our website, by the way, so you can find it on our website or in the email or on YouTube, for instance. So you don't have to necessarily join live. You can view the recording later on. Question is, my idea was to pay 3 times 3.5. Yeah, that's. I think that if you're looking at the profit share model, I think you should be able to add the capital actually in one shot, and that should be trading the correct lot size for your capital. I don't think you have to open 3 different accounts for the profit share model. But if you're thinking about the EA rental, then yes, then you should, if you want to trade it 3 times, you need 3 licenses. If you only have 1 license, you can trade it with 10,000 euros, but you would only trade it with 1 license, which means 1 lot. So you would earn the same, but the percentage would be less. You would be earning the same as with 2.5 capital. Correct. If you want to rent it and you want to earn, if you want to trade with 10,000 euros, and you want to earn 3 times, you could trade it 3 times or even 4 times, then you need to rent 3 licenses. Correct. With the profit share model, I believe that that you just open 1 account and you add the capital that you want. But I will double check that as well. So there are 2 things I need to double check. Basically, is can you add all the capital in 1 account? And is it okay? Is it safe to trade with 1,500 as a minimum? I'll double check those and provide the answer in today's Zeus EA webinar. Okay. I'm not sure if you can fund the account with BTC. Manando would need to check with KTM what kind of deposits they accept. That depends on the broker. We're working with Keto Markets, KTM, as our partner broker for Zeus EA. So I'm not sure what kind of deposits they accept. That would have to be checked with them. I don't know by heart, to be honest. Correct, Marco. That is how I think it works at this moment. So indeed, the lot size will increase depending on the total PAM size. Basically, PAM, of course, is the method how uh, the the accounts are traded, and you'll have to set up if you're interested. You'll have to set up an account with Key2 Markets, sign a limited power of attorney because of the legal aspects of it, fund the account, connect the account, and that's it, and you're good to go. And then the total pool of capital will determine the lot size chosen. By the way, the PAM will not trade with the max risk. It would trade a little bit less. I have to double check how much again, just that you know. It could be good information for you. And the reason is because we want to limit the drawdown a little bit. So we will be using three licenses, three lots, micro lots per 10,000 capital instead of 7,500 capital, which means that it's about 33% less aggressive than the max recommended. And we do that because, well, yeah, it's we want to provide a middle ground for everyone and not go to the max with the CA. I think that seems like a very pleasant kind of solution to me, and I think it should be kind of the ideal scenario for most traders. Some might want the most aggressive version, and of course, feel free to add a rental. You can rent the EA, and you can also add a profit share part. You can do both, in fact. And you can trade a little bit less aggressive with the profit share model, and rent the EA and go with the max risk with the rental, for instance. So that's always important. The performance. Let's see. I'll calculate it. So it should be 25% less. Let's see. So it'll be about 5 to 5.5% per month on average, I suspect. I have to make some calculations still. Hang on, folks. Let me do some math very quickly. I want to be more precise. Yeah, it should be about 5% indeed. Plus minus should be the average. Anywhere between 4.5 and 5.5, 4 to 5.5, depending on the month. Here, for instance, we had 9%. So uh, let's see, with 9% and the lower, that could have been around 7%, for instance, 6.8. If we would have had the slightly less risk approach with the profit share model. Okay, so instead of 7.5k, 7,500 euros per 3 lots, it's going to trade 10,000 euros per 3 lots. So slightly more will provide a little bit more buffer with the drawdowns, but also slightly less profit indeed, correct, as well. So that's always the flip side, of course. Going with max risk or a little bit less risk will always impact the drawdown or expected gains. Okay. Yeah, there's a special indeed in September. Once you join in September, those conditions will remain the same. In October, the conditions do change for everyone, correct. But once you've joined in September, then it doesn't change for you. You could still add capital, as far as I understood. Uh, but then you will have the profit share available. You will keep that profit share. You will keep that level as well. So it's not only for September, but I will double check that too. I hope I didn't misunderstand that. I don't want to misspeak and promise something that wasn't um, the goal. So there are 3 things I need to double check. As far as I understood, once you join in September, this is the percentage you keep for life as long as you stay a member. Whereas if you start in October, it will be a higher percentage. All right. But I understand it might seem like this is the percentage that you get in September, and after that you go back to the normal percentage. So I want to double check if my assumption actually was correct. But this is how I read it, so I'll double check that too. Good questions. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Ultima EA then, I guess. At this moment, I wanted to indicate that some of you have rented the EA about 6 months now. You have received a 1 month bonus because of the slow March where there were not many setups. And some of you are getting close to the end of the 6 month rental period. Now, if you don't want to continue with the rental, there's still the option of a profit share model for you. We'll always have it available for you if you want to continue rather with the profit share model rather than renewing your subscription with a paid option. You can do that. No upfront fees or costs. So that's one way of doing that. If you do want to expand or extend, I should say, the rental, just let us know, and you can do that. Now, we have noticed that many of the renters have unfortunately changed the parameters of their trades. Many basically closing the trade after 20 pips profit, deleting pending orders. Now, it is because you're renting it. Of course, anyone can decide what they want to do at any time. Of course, that's your choice. But um, then again, if you start changing the parameters of the EA, it kind of undermines the purpose of the EA, which is that it's trading automatically for you and without the need of your intervention. If you do intervene, then it's a question whether those choices are more profitable than the EA itself. And in most cases, or all cases, they are not. I know it seems tempting to think that you could outperform the EA, and I'm sure that some people could. Um, But it's not that easy as it might seem. There's a reason why the EA is up here 840% after a year. I understand that that requires a lot of patience because this 840% takes a year, which means living through hundreds of trades and not intervening in those trades. And that's a challenge, which is maybe why the profit share model is an advantage for you because there you cannot intervene. And intervening in trades is tempting, I understand that, but ultimately is going to backfire in the long run. It might seem tempting to grab 20 pips and in this trade right now, but maybe that's the trade that I don't know, makes 20% or that makes 15%, and instead you grab 2%, for instance. So those differences can really add up a lot and quickly. And we see a lot of rental traders doing that and struggling with that. And yeah, unfortunately, we calculated that if the renters would have just kept trading the EA from February onwards, end of February, beginning March, without intervening, their account would have been up about 50%. Most of the renters are not in that category. They're not up 50%. Now, 50% for this EA is not that earth-shocking, to be very honest, because this EA can accelerate at times very strongly and blast through a 50% level like it's nothing. So 50% is, for this EA, modest, but still it's better than nothing, and most renters didn't reach that level because, in our view, most were intervening in those setups. I understand the temptation. I don't want to be too harsh. It's everyone's choice. I'm just explaining that by doing that, you're kind of maybe winning a battle, but losing the war because of the fact that all those interventions add up and ultimately have a negative impact, unfortunately. Okay, that's great, Roger. Yeah, if there was no TP, and usually you do have a TP, and usually you see a stop loss when you're renting the EA. I assume you do, Roger, because it depends also what type of rental you are. You can rent it with Mislav's VPS or without Mislav's VPS. And so that depends. If you're renting it without Mislav's VPS, you don't see the TP and stop loss nowadays. If you are renting it with Mislav's VPS, then you should be seeing both stop loss and TPs indeed. As far as I understood, at least. So I assume you're renting it with his VPS in that case. And you usually, in the past, have always seen stop losses and TPs up till now. And in that case, if there was no TP, then I understand that indeed. All right. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just trying to give perspective and trying to explain. That it's important to understand the long-term benefits of the system, and by intervening, there's a risk of undermining that potential performance. Let me say it this way. Once you do it more and more, that risk increases. Now, personally, I don't do that either. I don't intervene, even though one could argue that my technical analysis is something I really rely on and I count on, and I think offers value. Still, I don't intervene in the EA myself. I don't. I just never did. Always let it run. So, just giving you context, the decision is yours though. If you want to continue with the rental, would be great. Feel free to do so, of course. But if you think that you're struggling, then maybe consider the profit share model because it might be easier to follow through on that. But always choose a capital that you feel comfortable with, of course. That's very important. All right, Roger added some extra comment. Indeed, it was only with the last trade. So I'm happy to hear that in the sense that it was an exception, and I fully understand if there's no TP that you did that, by the way. So that makes a lot of sense, and we'll try to figure out what happened with that last trade specifically. And Roger is up 30% since March. He's happy with that. And yeah, the performance can vary depending on broker, depending on if the trades were missed. So 30%, very realistic, slightly less than the backtesting we did, but that is very, very possible that one trade was missed, one trade was skipped, or extra trade taken, and stuff like that. So 30%, once again, is for this EA, I think quite modest, to be honest. But it's been a little bit slower since February, as you can see. Stefan is only seeing stop loss. Is that something, Stefan, you always have had? You never saw the TP, but you do see the stop loss? I don't know about that particular combination. Are you renting the VPS from Islav or not? That will give me a bit more info. Hang on, folks. So I would need to get that info. If you have any doubts though, Stefan, you can always reach out to our email address and but add the information that I asked about, okay? Because that would be important to get context and for us to understand your situation. Okay, so feel free to reach out. Also, last but not least, okay, thank you, Roger. Good. Let's investigate that. Um, yeah, also, last but not least, when to invest or not. Let's say that you want to trade with 5,000 euros. Um, what would be the best to do? Now, I think there are a couple of choices. Determine how much capital you want to trade per EA. So let's say you do 50-50 split, half on Zeus, half on Ultima. Then the question is, with Zeus, maybe not so, but with Ultima, for instance, you could decide, do I go with the full amount now, or do I do half now and half when there's a drawdown, for instance, right? Often what we see is traders try a smaller amount now and then add after a winning streak. Unfortunately, that is probably the least profitable way of doing that. I made that mistake myself, to be honest. Probably the better way is to either start with the full amount from the beginning and just survive all of the ups and downs, of course, only with the risk capital you can afford to lose, or start with a part of the amount and add after a drawdown. So best moment to have added was maybe here when I was saying that this is at support, or even here halfway to drawdown, or maybe after a bounce up, for instance, rather than trying to add after a winning streak. A lot of traders are trying to add after a winning streak because they see kind of a confirmation that the EA is working as they think. But yeah, that's basically the psychology of trading the equity curve itself. And we see a lot of traders actually withdrawing capital after a drawdown rather than maybe thinking about adding. Now, I wouldn't add capital, of course, you cannot afford to lose, don't get me wrong. You can only risk capital you can afford to lose. That's always the case. But a lot of traders are adding after a profit, after a win streak, and withdrawing after a losing streak. So it's good to critically think about that and wonder, maybe don't add after the profit streak, but add after some type of drawdown, for instance, right? Or start with the capital that you want to risk from the very beginning and just keep it at that. All right, so that's something I wanted to add as well. I think that's something to think about in how you can improve your approach to trading in EA, because otherwise there's really not much to decide. The EA will trade how the EA is supposed to, and there's not really much that else that we can do as investors, as traders. The EA is fully automated, so there's really not much choice or things to do for us besides thinking about this in a way. Okay, when to grab profit, when to add capital, what capital to start with. Those are the main things to consider and main things to do. All right, folks. I guess that's it for today. Thanks again for joining, and we'll hopefully see you later today. We're going to have the Zeus EA webinar at 3 p.m. GMT time. See you soon. Cheers.